Welcome, everybody, to a very special episode of the Higher Ground Podcast, the show where we dive into my song catalog and try to reach new plateaus by just diving into a song per episode and hopefully trying to gain some new insights about life, love, and all that kind of stuff. I want to welcome my very special guest, Mr. Steve Lester.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whenever you're listening to this. Glad to be here, my man.
Thanks so much for being here. You know, before we get going, I really gotta praise the guy sitting across from me. This guy, not only a great friend of mine, one of the closest people to me in my life. He's really done so much for me, especially as it relates to this music that I try to create and get in your ears. Steve, he's a co-writer of mine. If you look on any one of these releases, he's pretty much taken every picture that you might see of me. He took, this is the 4 album, he's taken that shot. He took this shot from Dust on the Tracks. Going further back in time, he's taken this shot on Sleeping with Ghosts Volume 1. This is the only one that's not really a photo, the Black Sheep record, and then going back all the way back to the first album, we shot this in Steve's old place. He had this really cool couch, and I saw
I miss that.
you put on Instagram, there was a picture of, they got the best dog in the world. We call him Easy-E. Easy-E. Steve did a photo shoot of Easy-E sitting on his couch. And that's, I was like, when we do a photo shoot, I want to.
I mean, doggy see, doggy see, doggy do.
Doggy see, doggy do. He's also taking the pictures for the 2 DVDs, Desperado Volume 1 and Volume 2 sitting up there. Anyway.
Took the pictures, but the classic and gorgeous editing was all you, though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, it was very inspiring that way, kind of like a co-writing session almost. You take the picture and then I screw with it a little bit.
For sure.
Very fun, but very grateful for all the photography, all the co-writing bond that we've created that started. I want to get into that story, how we met as well. But Steve, all this to say, I consider Steve, somewhat of a Renaissance man, and in the sense that he does all kinds of things, and hopefully we get into more of that stuff later. But amazing songwriter with such a very, especially here in Nashville, bringing such a unique and interesting musical flavor to the songs that he's a part of and the records that he chooses to make. So welcome, Steve Lester.
Well, what an introduction. Thanks, man. Happy to be here. Been wanting to get on this podcast for a while, so we're making it happen today for you. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much for being here. I'm really pumped about this episode, really, because, let's talk about maybe how we met first.
Sure.
Because that kind of leads into what we're going to talk about today. I think, as you know, I've always kind of felt strongly about the song that we are going to talk about today. So before we get into all that, I can tell you right now that I remember the first time I met you was I had a meeting at the demolition office on Music Row with Michael August, and you were, like, we were talking for maybe a half hour, something like that, and he was showing me around the building, and you were writing a song with 2 other folks, and there was a dog in there.
Probably, yeah. I'm assuming it was Megan Connor or something with her dog.
Yeah, I didn't know the other 2 in there. I just remember seeing this, like, super cool dude.
Too cool.
Yeah, he was
right.
super cool. No, they were in the middle of like of I'm sure writing a great song, and I saw this dude and I was like, I just felt there was like an energy there. I was like, I might not have ever seen you again, but I was just like, I like this guy.
Yeah.
And then I kind of walked away, I was like, hey, what's up? And then it was done. Mm-hmm. But then about maybe 8 months later, maybe 6 to 8 months later, we have a couple mutual friends, Joey Ebach, who I talk about a bunch as it relates to this music, and Greg Freya.
Uncle Greg.
Me and Joey and Greg wrote this song one time called Bed on Fire. It's on the 4 album. And right after, about a month after we wrote that song, Greg put a Starbucks writers round together.
Which I don't think I did not want to do it because I was like, I love Starbucks. I mean, I survive on it every day. I don't know if you wanted to do it, but I just all my times of being in a Starbucks, I remember telling my wife Chrissy, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm gonna be playing at a Starbucks. I didn't even know they allowed music in Starbucks, but I did it, and I was like, something's telling me I just shut up and do it. So
right,
it was like the best thing ever because you're right. That's where we reunited.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, it's funny. I felt very similarly. For my own I had a couple of reasons why I didn't want to go. I wasn't in the best like headspace at the time, and I remember specifically not wanting to do that show for a couple of reasons. I felt maybe out of place in doing it, and I was like, why am I playing here? First of all, I wasn't an artist at the time, and I really didn't play a ton of shows, but maybe I was starting to want to. And I was in a similar boat where I had to kind of twist my own arm into showing up. So yeah, very happy we both. I remember sitting down. I was placed next to Joey, in between Joey and Steve, and I remember saying hi to you, in a parking lot or something, and being like, "Oh yeah, I met you that one time at Demolition." But anyway, sitting next to you, getting to hear. From my kind of vantage point up on stage, your songs, and just really enjoyed our time up there. I was like, this is a cool guy. Yeah, like, hope and that's where I think at least my wheels started turning. I was like, I want to write with this guy or something, or because that's kind of how it works down here. If you bond with somebody on stage, chances are you should probably write with them because you might do something cool creatively. But
for sure, yeah, you were in the middle. And I remember, and I knew the show went okay. It was a good writer's round. I mean, I got to hear you perform. Again, I only met you that one time, so I remember hearing you perform and hearing your songs. Loved it. And then I think Greg was up there too, right? He was,
he was on the end playing piano.
And that was cool. But the funniest thing was, I remember right after that, you and I just kind of talked. Like I didn't say really much to anybody else. I was like, all right, dude, cool, what's up? Like we would just it's just that effortless kind of energy we had towards each other, which we still do. That's why we're like such close friends. It's just so easy with you. It was easy then, and I didn't really know anything about you. So I remember having that exchange with you and telling my wife in the car because she was there, and I was like, I think that Ryland guy is pretty dope. I was like, definitely gonna have to get together with this guy and write something. So, and we eventually did.
Yeah. No, I felt the same way, and it's so nice when that works out.
Because it doesn't happen.
Almost never.
It doesn't. And I would say like a few reasons for that is, the writers' rounds are. It's a very like sacred place, but again, when you're up there and you're playing with, it doesn't matter. It's like 4 or 5 other people. Like you are kind of in your own lane and world, and you want to perform the best, and you want to kind of outshine everybody. It don't matter. It's just like an ego thing. But even
your buddies,
buddies, you want to do that, and so when you get off stage, it's more like, all right, well, that was cool. I really liked your stuff. I mean, how many times have you ever said, like, I really liked that song that you did, but you're like, maybe you really didn't even hear it. You're just like, I think our exchange was very real. It was like, actually, I really liked this one thing you did right there on that one tune. It was very specific. And I think if you find people like that to create in this creative endeavor you're doing, get on that. Like, write with that person, be around that person, because it doesn't happen all the time.
No, and yeah, it was just so I remember Chrissy, your wife, was sitting right in front of you and I, like in the audience. And I remember, at this point, I know that, you're with her. And I remember looking at her and be like, does this guy have like 20 records out? Because he should.
Nah, yeah.
You know what I mean? I was immediately a fan. And I guess probably because your music has always been outstanding, but I guess one of the reasons why, for me, what I love about it is that it's so refreshing. I think all of us as creators, as artists, I think the good ones, or the ones with the best intentions, are the ones that, wherever they came from, whatever was kind of wired in them from day one, they came to a music center like Nashville, and they didn't throw those nuances away. All the things that make you you did not throw those away in the rat race of being an artist and a creator in Nashville. There's a lot of pressure, I think, to fall in line, to the business, right? Especially with, and I'm sure this happens in every generation. I'm sure they were saying this in the 90s, but for us with pop country and what was kind of following the next era of bro country, there was a lot of pressure there to fall in line and do this one thing. But as we've talked about 100 times, it's the copies aren't remembered. It's the originals are remembered. And how are you going to be an original? You take on some level, you believe in yourself, and you take your skills and your nuances and your weird and your everything that makes you, and bring it down here, and put your, I always refer to it as almost like as a fingerprint. Fingerprints are one of a kind, right?
Right.
And so on every one of your songs, including all of the songs that you've written with me, you can hear Steve all over these songs, and every song that I've ever heard out of him, he's got this really cool, like, I'm sure he would describe it probably differently than me. I'm my own ignorance. It's I think it's very R&B heavy, very jazz oriented. A lot of cool stuff in there. The art rock in there is like you could hear some Zappa, Tom Waits, even things that don't come out of me naturally. So all of this to say, what I'm getting at is what I noticed about you that day was, and one of the reasons I wanted to write with you so bad was because, as you know, I kind of consider myself very lyric heavy, and you brought, I was hearing this musicality out of you that I was like, oh, I just feel like we could do things that nobody's ever heard before.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I was pumped.
No, that's awesome. Well, that's awesome to hear. And it was funny because when I first moved here, I did not fit in to anything. I moved here to be a writer. So I remember going in, well, like when you first get here, you get thrown in all the rounds, you got to network, you got to meet the people, and then you start writing, and you do one or two things. You either own your superpower of what you can bring to the table, and you keep that, and you're like, well, this is what I can offer. Mm-hmm. Or you can try to adapt to what everyone else is doing, and then you're just writing, the millionth song that day that sounds like what everyone else is doing, and you're just like, well, that's not going to get us anywhere. So kind of being, I appreciate you say that, because I always thought like staying true to just kind of being that like dark horse and not giving up of what I felt sounds good. Like I like what I do. That's the biggest thing. And if they don't like it and didn't fit in, and it didn't for a long time, everyone's like, I don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many times did I would walk into BMI and they're like, show us your stuff, and I'm thinking I'm writing a country song, but it probably sounds like that jazzy kind of Tom Waits thing, and they're just like, no, like I don't get it. Like they're like, nice try, but I didn't want to lose that because I was like, no, I think there's actually something special here. So whatever, I want to keep it. So I appreciate you noticing that, and I think too, again, when we'll get to like when we wrote, but I did notice like on your songs how lyrically driven they were and how in depth you go, and that's something that I don't really shine with. I do like, I can do it, but I need someone to pull that out of me. And so it was cool hearing that the first time you performed. I'm like, oh man, this guy's lyrics, like he's telling some stories up here. Like this is great. So two completely different animals that I think when they meet just create something really special.
Oh yeah. And that's the beauty of co-writing. So to be clear, both myself and Steve and all of my co-writers for that matter, you do it all. You write lyrics, you write melody, you play an instrument. Sometimes you got production skills. Point being, everybody does everything, but usually I think you'd be hard pressed to find a musical artist of any kind that is equally skilled at everything. Usually you lean into one area a little bit more. And so I always personally love the people that choose to lean musically, where I lean lyrically. Those tend to be, I write songs by myself all the time, and so does Steve. But for me, I tend to be very inspired by working with people like Steve who are much more musical than me. So, and as he said, you always get this, I guess you can consider it like a child, you know what I mean? You take in some DNA here, some DNA here, and you slap it together and you get something really cool. And that's why I've recorded so many songs that I've written with Steve and that kind of brings us to, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, like, you're right on the money with, finding people that lean into, I like to call it like your superpower, right? Because sometimes you try to get in a room and this person's like, well, I'm like 50% lyrics, I'm about 20% music, I'm about, 10% production, like whatever. Like that's great, but I think if you could just go into 100% of what you really shine in, you're going to be 10 out of 10 more valuable in that room that day than anything. And I think that's important if there's any songwriters out there listening to it, like find out what you're really good at and drive that home and just own that and let that be you.
I think the first time that we wrote a song, I remember Steve and I were texting about it. And I remember Steve saying, again, we have some mutual friends, and he, we didn't know each other very well. So he was kind of doing the right thing by saying like, hey man, do you want to maybe make this a 3-person write? To maybe like take that, probably, kind of break the ice, helps break the ice a little bit. And I just felt so strongly that that we could get good stuff. I was actually, dude, we can do that if you want, but I would actually prefer just you and I just get in a room and do the thing, that because I just felt like it was really going to go well.
Yeah, and I think so too. At the time I was writing, I think I probably tried to bring Mike in or something. It was probably like, or someone else. Just because at the time I was doing a lot of three-piece writes. I haven't done just me and another person in a very, very long time. And I was like, okay. But I was like, well, hell yeah, let's go. Like, all right, we're going to try this.
And that was another indicator, that the fact that you were cool with it. I can't tell you how many people, I think you're absolutely right. Most co-writes, I would say, are 3 people. And I think it's out of fear, man.
Oh, I was going to say, it's exactly, probably what was going through my head too. It's just a safety net.
It is a
It's
safety
like,
net.
what if I show up and I'm not bringing it that day? Well, at least we have this other person in the room that can buffer through. And all that is just insecurity. It's not needed at all, but it's the little bit of safety net that you're like, because you have doubts of, am I going to bring it today? And nah, you don't need a third person. It probably, the more people, it's not the merrier.
Yeah,
Not at all.
agreed. Is that the too many cooks is a very real
Oh yeah.
concept in co-writing. Yeah, man. So we went over to your place. So we booked our thing. We went over to your place, and the rest is history, right? I remember. I don't know if you remember this. I remember some fine details about that. Pretty much as soon as we sat down. Okay, and I'll say this, and I'd like to get into some of this kind of discussion later on, but I'm coming off the heels of my grandma had just passed away, and she was kind of like a second mother to me, so it was a huge loss to me in my life. That said, the Grammys, I want to say, had just happened. So we step into your office that day, and we start, after, we let the dust settle a little bit, then we start talking about what we might want to do.
Oh yeah.
And we always bring a ton of things to the table, but you had mentioned that I think it was the Grammys that just happened, and a lot of people had passed away that year. So they did one of those big tribute videos like they always do. And there was some song behind it, and I think you knew who it was or who the composer was. And but you were just like, I remember. Do you remember that? Am I remembering that right? I feel
No,
like
now that you brought it up, yeah, exactly. Because that was the intent for the idea. They'd always do like a montage. There's a proper name for that moment in the show, but it's to pay tribute and honor to the people we've lost that year. And I think it was the Grammys. And I think the song might even have been Hallelujah.
Oh,
Might have been Hallelujah. They actually use that one quite a bunch, but I think going back, it probably was Hallelujah.
interesting. So yeah, you seemed highly inspired by that, and that's the kind of the thing with co-writing is, I think if you're doing the right thing, when somebody feels strongly about something, you kind of get out of the way of that, and if you can get on board with that, if it kind of feels like it's got maybe some weight to it, probably something you want to chase. And so you had this title, and you had some substance there. It was almost like you had some lines. And anyway, so this is all a big lead up to the topic of discussion for today is actually this is the first episode where we're going to be talking about an unreleased track, at least as of this recording. And I'm sure this episode will come out before the song comes out. So this is kind of a cool teaser. And probably include, when this episode comes out, maybe, like a demo version. I have a demo version. I actually want to show it to Steve today before we wrap up. And I want to kind of get his first reaction. He hasn't heard it yet. So anyway, unreleased track called, and the first song that Steve and I ever wrote called Take Me With You. Steve has this title called Take Me With You. He's inspired by the tribute at the Grammys. So we're kind of feeling like we're going to talk about loss, right?
Mm-hmm. And not knowing that you had just lost your grandmother, so that made it
kind of magical in a way.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Just looking back, you're setting up that whole right. It's one of those times where I think this song was just in the room, kind of waiting for us to do, and everything that you were going through at that time that I didn't even know. And then what I just experienced at watching that special moment at the Grammys, it's just, again, I just think that's the magic of creation. It's like we were kind of supposed to write that day.
Yes. As you guys hopefully know by now, I've talked about this before, and I've talked about it with Steve a million times. Songwriting's a spiritual act, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And, creativity is a spiritual act. And that said, like you say, there's something in the room that you wanna it's not tangible, but hopefully you can be almost like a vehicle to capture this thing that's so much bigger than you in a creative form. For in our case, in sound, in music, in melody, and in lyric, and so there's something where there's something about a writing appointment where none of us get to kind of pick how the other one shows up that day, right? I remember not only did I lose my grandma, but I had a big relationship fall apart, so I was very like out of sorts, but I was still kind of keeping the wheels on a track. I was still showing up to my day to day, but I was like just a mess if you got me in a certain headspace. And this guy just met me, so looking back, it was probably very bizarre, but I think he did have some context because it's somewhere in the middle of the writing session, I'm like bawling my eyes out.
There was a breakdown, yeah.
There was a breakdown. I told him, I was like, dude, I went through this loss and I went through this other thing, and I just feel like what I felt like was is the reason why I felt so strongly about this song all these years, and I knew that I wanted to record it at some point because I feel like it's a shame not to. I forget where I lost my train of thought, but I wanted to read you something. I've kind of said this before, but I jotted this down. This is kind of what we were talking about. I don't know if you remember that documentary that came out that they shot in Nashville about the Nashville songwriter. It's called It All Begins With a Song. Do you remember when that came out?
I remember when it came out, yeah.
In the trailer, there's a little short poem. So Mac Davis, the guy who wrote In the Ghetto and all that stuff, he's in there, and he tells this little poem. I don't know who wrote it, but it kind of puts in words what how I kind of feel about this spiritual process. He says, "They come from poets and balladeers, age-old stories passed down through the years, from little babies' laughter, from lovers' tears, and sometimes God just whispers in your ear." And I feel like,
wow.
I mean, isn't that heavy?
That's great.
I mean,
fact.
Right. Well, that last line is kind of how I feel about this. I think why you and I have such a strong bond is to write a song like that. Now, you're going to hear this song eventually, and you might even hear a demo version of it on this episode. And so to give you a little bit of context, this isn't a song that's performed where like the voice, the narrator in the song, it's not me the singer, it's not Steve the singer, it's somebody that's passed on, that's where we are the vehicle, where it's that whisper in the ear from something that I don't know what it is.
Right. And it was kind of it was a tricky one. I think it flowed like the Nile when we were in the room. I mean, because we got deep, but it's a tricky one because it's not coming from us. We're writing from the perspective of the person that has moved on, and what would that person say to you to give you comfort, to let you know that they're still there, and so you're not really living this. You as the writer, you're not living that. You've never lived that. You would have to die to have written this. So it was an interesting tackle to take on that kind of subject matter and write from that perspective. And it was just so fun, and it was very emotional. It was a very emotional process for sure. Have you ever written a song like that? No, that was the first and only time.
Right.
And I don't think I'd ever want to tackle it. I don't want to try to do it again because I think because you could. There's a lot of ways you can go about that.
Right.
I do think in our version we did more of the kind of a sentimental approach of like, hey, everything's going to be okay. I'm still with you, but it's hard to do that because there's so much grief and loss, and yeah, I just really felt like we did it appropriately. It's
just a little bit.
Yeah, it served the purpose of the song, but it's not the easiest subject matter
Right.
to grasp.
Absolutely. Yeah, I that was kind of a one and done. Because usually I don't know about you, but I know you see you write some really cool stuff where there's a lot of different sandboxes that you're kind of playing in creatively. Usually what I'm usually writing about myself, as you know.
Yeah.
I'm usually wanting to write about myself, so the voice in the song is usually some version of me, like one of the many versions of me. This one, yeah, was just such different territory. And if you remember, we were both immediately in love with it, and I'm, a lot of times you say that. A lot of times people are like, oh, I love it, great write, but this actually was, and I felt so strongly about it. Turned it into my publisher at the time, and it was very interesting. I felt, now Steve and I are very privy to the rules of Nashville songwriting and attempted hit writing, right?
Yeah.
And we don't take that stuff super seriously at this stage of the game, but with that notwithstanding, I still felt like we had broke such new ground, and the song was so great and so magical that I thought that my publisher would see past the rules, and
they never do.
So who's the voice in the song? It's a dead person. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Right.
That's where they were kind of coming from.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so they don't get it. Okay.
Yeah.
So at that moment, I put this little kind of to-do item in the back of my head that, if this doesn't get recorded, it's going to get out somehow. And I wasn't even an artist back then when we wrote this thing. So here we are now, and still feel as strongly about it since day one, man. And I guess the reason is, and the song still makes me emotional. Sometimes I do get choked up when I'm thinking about. I will listen to it, especially now that I have kind of like this little demo version of it, as I'm wrapping up the record that it's going to end up on. If I'm going through a certain something, I will turn it on and I will still feel all the same things. And I wanted to ask you about, because I don't know about you, but we were kind of talking downstairs when you got here, we were talking about something else, but I was mentioning that, me as being a single guy, I live in this home alone, right? So you have a lot of time to think, and even when I'm not here, it's like I'm in my car doing something or other. I'm usually by myself thinking about, you have a lot of time to think. And ever since, at least since I moved to town, I think I immediately became more of a spiritual person. I wouldn't say like religious, but spiritual. And I have this tattoo here where I have my grandpa, my grandma that I was referring to, and my uncle. These are the three people that I think about as it relates to this song, and as it relates to feeling like you have an angel on your shoulder. I feel like there's too many things that I've survived, there's too many landmines that I've sidestepped for that not to be a thing. I wanted to ask you about that sort of thing. Do you feel like this concept of having an angel on your shoulder, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. For sure. I mean, there's been too many incidents where a lot could have went wrong, probably should have went wrong and didn't. I always feel like there's people looking out, and help kind of guiding the ship. Definitely, because I firmly believe it's impossible to not think like that. Like we can only control so much as humans, and you'd be a fool to believe that there's nothing greater either up there or out there that's helping you along your journey. And if you said like you have a lot of time to think. I mean, if you really took a lot of time to think, like, I mean, there's a lot of incidences in my life where if I would have went left, probably wouldn't be here right now, but chose the right door, right? But I think being guided by something way bigger than myself, for sure.
Absolutely. Do you remember? This is asking a lot, but because the reason I asked that is because that's what the song to me is all about. Take me with you. You know, it's somebody to me that's passed on and is saying, "Take me with you." You know, let me be that angel on your shoulder. Let me, be there for the good times and for the bad times, and I'll help you through. I'll help you down that long and winding road, especially when you need me. Like, just remember, I'm always just a couple steps behind, as the song says. So this is asking a lot, but do you remember why that title with that concept? Because that's what we wrote it about.
Right.
Do you remember why that even came into your head?
I just thought I'm always one thing I would pride myself on in a writer's room is I wanted to always come up with I was a concept guy, a title guy. Still am to the day. I like a juicy title, and I always thought "Take Me With You" was such a sentimental, sweet thing, an empowering thing for someone who, if they knew they weren't going to be with you. Honestly, what I was thinking, I remember this was like, say the husband goes off to war or something. And I think what a romantic thing a wife would say, but like, when you're out there and you're doing the thing, just take me with you. Like it's just that comfort statement. Whether it's that situation or a grandparent that's leaving, like what a unique thing to say to somebody. It's like, even though I'm not here, I'm always here. As long as you take me with you. I may not be on this earth, but I will always be either inside of you, around you, a few steps behind, whatever. I'll never leave you. But as long as you take me with you. I just thought that was the line. I was like, I've never heard someone say that. You've always heard, I'll watch over you. I'm always looking out. But take me with you. It kind of gives the person a task. Like, don't forget about me. And in the song, I think you realize, like, if you do still believe that this person, is with you always, they'll be that little angel on your shoulder, and they'll never leave your side.
Absolutely. Do you think, is it just a nice little thing to say of, is it just something to, is it more about, is the take me with you idea more about, keep me in your memory and I'll be with you in that way? Or is it something bigger than that?
I think it's something bigger than that. I think it's, like you were saying, man, you have a lot of time to think. You're lost in the walls. We were talking downstairs, just like we all go through this kind of mental craziness. We're overthinking things all the time. Whatever, we get depressed, we have anxiety.
Right.
I think the take me with you is not just remember me in your mind, it's remember me in your heart. But honestly, like I've never left. Like, right. I'm always here.
Like what I'm saying is I literally feel it.
Yeah.
Whether it be, maybe it's because everybody like believes different stuff. You're right. It's like we can talk about reincarnation. Like some people like we've talked about birds with your wife. With Chris, we've talked about the meaning of maybe like what birds or what certain kind of moments in nature how that's some sort of communication to this other world, right? Yeah, man, I just feel like
Well, I think that is
when we
like,
need it, they give it.
yeah. And that's part of Take Me With You is if you believe that I'm, and if you feel that I'm still with you, you will find me in these things. Like my wife will see a cardinal and always think of her grandmother,
Yeah.
or you'll hear me in a song. You'll hear me with a scent that passes by. It's whatever. But that is what Take Me With You is I will show up in these places in your life always, as long as you believe that I'm still out there with you.
Absolutely. And then, yeah, just going, it makes me think about the creative aspect of, of things too. It's like, it's almost like if you're tuned in, it's like tuning your mind and your spirit to a certain frequency, whether when you're creating or whether you're praying about something or whatever it might be. I think, I don't know about you. I'm sure you have. It's like, it's just, you can feel it. You can feel it when you're tuned in, when the antenna are up and you're communicating with something so much bigger than you. I've always said this, especially as it relates to the creativity aspect of things, man. I think we'd all be super egotistical and delusional to think that you and I are so good, so gifted that we can just crank out songs like Take Me With You. I think it's silly. I think the thing that we're skilled in is communicating with something bigger than us.
Right.
And allowing that to fall into our lap and being, again, finely tuned in a way to write it down and turn it into notes and words.
Yeah.
Well,
you got to think so too. There's how many songs written about love
Oh,
that
yeah.
when something is well crafted and it's like, I get that. And you wrote love in a really beautiful way. But then there's songs that you hear that are even that are about love that are very simple, but you're just more involved in it. You're like soaked into it. And that's because you could feel the intent. There's something about that like whoever, bled across the page to write that was definitely in that tuned in, turned on kind of situation where sometimes it doesn't have to be so articulate. It's a very simple message, but you can feel that in songs. You can feel that in film. You can
Right.
feel that in a lot of different creative outlets. But again, how many songs are written about love? How many do you actually feel? How many do you actually believe? How many do you really listen to? And it's like, wow, that is exactly what I felt at that moment, or how I'm feeling with my wife or whoever, my parents. It doesn't matter. Like, those are the special ones, and those are not easy to get all the time.
Oh, yeah.
We can use our skills and our craftsmanship and pen you 30 love songs by this afternoon, and I guarantee we'll be lucky to have one that's just okay. I mean, that's really real. So like, it definitely is like it's that spiritual process of create, especially if you're going to tackle deep, powerful messaging. Love, loss are two very big topics, and there's a lot of songs about love and loss, and not a lot of them that really cut through. So you got to really, and the ones that do. It's what I'm trying to say. Like, the ones that last, the ones that you listen to, and they make you cry, or they make you feel joy, they make you feel pain. It's because whoever was creating that at the time, it came from a very special, magical, and real place, and it just wasn't just talent and craftsmanship.
That is so well put. Wow. I was just thinking about so many things. I was like, oh, yes. Man, isn't that all that you just said? Isn't that what separates the men from the boys, or the women from the girls?
Yeah.
Like you said, somebody who's kind of educated in the craftsmanship of songwriting can they could write songs all day, and technically they'll probably make sense, and technically they'll be
Well, AI can do that for you now.
right. They'll be musically sound. But will you? AI is never. I promise. In my lifetime, this isn't just get off my lawn stuff, dude. AI won't in our lifetime like figure out how to make us cry from writing.
No, and I've always thought that the reason for that is this AI doesn't have a soul.
Exactly.
Humans have a soul, and humans know how to tap into it.
Right. Through that spirituality. So,
Right.
I think you nailed it. And it's like, I don't think anybody's really put into words. That is such an important thing to understand. They should maybe, you got like songwriting 101, 102. When you get to 103 and like the 200, 300, 400 level classes, right? This is some hypothetical songwriting college degree. After you get those basics down, that next level learning really should be about how to tap into the spiritual side of because creativity is a spiritual act. Read that Rick Rubin book. We talk about all the time, The Creative Act by Rick Rubin. I think Rick nails it. What an amazing teacher he is, because he kind of just he says what Steve put so succinctly. That's just such a huge thing. And it is, I think, the difference between the great songs and the good songs.
Yeah.
Good songs are a dime a dozen. Good songs don't matter. Good songs are okay. The difference between, good and great is like miles.
Yeah, for sure. And I think so too. You're talking about like doing songwriting, like learning all the rules, going through the classes and discovering whatever. It is a process. But let me ask you this. I think as you get to this level, like, okay, I know the rules, right? And Picasso has this beautiful quote where he always said, one must always learn the rules in order to break them like an artist. And I always love that, because you can learn everything. You can be the best. You can master the craft of songwriting, but there is this other stuff that they don't teach you, and that is this this spiritual act of allowing room in yourself, getting out of your own way, and allowing something else to come in and help with that process. And I think so many people don't do that because they're just so concentrated on, I had this idea, let's pound, and then, okay, I think we got the idea, we described it well, but there was no love or soul in that thing,
round hole,
man.
square peg, almost. It's like,
yeah, man, there's no God in there. There's no nothing. It's just, okay, this is great to read. It reads well, but there's no emotion to it. There's no oomph. There's no sauce on it, man. And like, you really can't teach that.
Right.
And do you think that like when you get to that level, like I honestly think it gets easier. Songwriting becomes easier if you allow that in. Would you agree with that?
I do. I think, yeah. I wonder, I know what you mean. Like that stuff is like very difficult to teach. I wonder if it could be learned, but only under the condition that somebody, at least during that creative time and that learning time, to open themselves up to these things that they just don't understand yet.
Right.
I don't know when it, I wonder when it happened to either of us. It's like if I go back in my memory, try to think like when it hit you, like at what point does it become a spiritual act and not like a normal job? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, and there is a difference between writing. Okay, so if you're going to sit in a room and your one job is to sit there with a 15-year-old girl who's a newly signed artist and she wants to write a song about trucks and boys, well, you may not know anything about that. So that's when you're going to use craftsmanship of the gods. You're going to try to do everything that you can to make sure you can write about trucks and boys.
right.
But when you write a meaningful song, when you write something that's like I mean, again, lost love, big subjects here. The craftsmanship is fun. It's good. You can use it, but I think you have to use something else.
Well, and I think that's where you almost learn. I think this is kind of what you were getting at before. It's without thinking about it. There's this autopilot, I think, on the inside of us. When you know that you're in that situation,
Yeah.
your body kind of gets those antenna up.
Yeah.
You know, like your soul flips the frequency to,
Yeah.
oh, we need to be listening for God right now. We need to be listening to that thing bigger than us that we can't put our finger on, that is so much smarter than us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's the magic zone.
Yeah.
And you can feel when you're in a room with someone else who's in the magic zone,
Yeah.
it makes it so much more powerful, but
Yeah.
you're not always in it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
It sucks to be in it.
And no
when
one else is in it. Yeah.
And the other person's not.
It's
Oh,
the
that's like
worst.
soul sucking because you're like, because then you
Right.
now like I'm the crazy person. You know?
Yeah.
It's like
And there's only so much you can convey and
like,
try
I
to get them
promise
to
this
be
is a
on your level.
spiritual
But
thing, and they think you're
Yeah.
you're this crazy dude.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean to them.
But even too, I think if you get you and I tap into this a lot when we write, but
Mm-hmm.
even if what you get isn't the best thing you ever did, that might have just been the best write you ever had that week, though.
Oh,
it was
yeah.
like that just made the process so joyous that wow, like I don't care if anybody loves this or not, this is like just I loved being in that room for 3 to 4 hours and being in that zone with someone. That's a special like sanctity. Like wow, like that's I think the best part of the process.
Oh yeah, and I don't know. I can pretty much say, you know, I have a good memory of all of my songs and what they were like writing them with the folks that wrote on them. Man, I think in every single one of those situations that we're talking about, those kind of more spiritual, creative sessions that felt like art. Man, I've either recorded it or I'm going
Or
to.
you're going to,
And I have like
yeah.
a plan to, and that includes all of our stuff. Remember that we wrote last song we wrote was Walls.
Oh, walls, yeah.
I already got, you know, I know what I'm doing for that one. You know, there's a million of them. You know, pretty much everything I ever wrote with you, and again, I get there with. That's why, you know, you and I always talk about, you know, keeping those circles tight. I know it's becoming almost like we're talking about like the culture of songwriting in Nashville so much, but I think it's so tied to this the topic of this song because of that spirituality aspect, you
Right.
know. It's like, but you what I was gonna say is you and I are always talking about keeping circles tight, and it's for the reason that you mentioned. It's after so many years that you've been doing this for so long in here in Nashville. I haven't been here quite as long, but I feel like we are both more than tired of not having a pleasant spiritual creative session
Yeah.
with our collaborators, to the point where you keep the circle tight so that you kind of when I get on this topic, I tend to say the same thing always, and that's I like to know what I'm going to get. Now that doesn't mean like I don't want that spontaneity and I want the song to be all about what's in my head. Not saying any of that. What I'm saying is I want to know what I'm going to get, in the sense I want to know that this is going to be a spiritual experience, because if it is, to me, in my mind, and it's never failed me once, there's 100% chance there's going to be a great song to come out of that.
Yeah.
100%. And that's what I want, 100% success rate of the time that I spent creating things, you know?
Exactly. And it also doesn't feel like it was a whole waste of time. It was
It's
actually
very fulfilling.
It was very fulfilling. Yeah, I think you're right, man. We always talk about keeping the circles tight, and I think a big thing is you know, I stopped writing for about a year, maybe 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, still maybe on the side a little bit, but I hated, you know, when you walk into the room and we're all, instead of trying to chase the song and the meaning and everything, we're all, you have people that want to chase the outcome.
Right.
Well, this is sounding like this, and they're already thinking of 900 artists they could give it to because they have this connection and that connection. I get it, man. It's a business. I understand. But what we're not doing is we're not being in the room at the moment when we're trying to write. Like that's the most important thing. It's just writing it and writing something that we believe is good. Not this song is gonna go this. That you're already off the plane, man. Like stay on the plane, let it go somewhere. But you already landed somewhere and took another vacation, and I hate that. It's like I had to walk away from that for a while, and it was a good thing because when I came back into it, it was just like, you realize the people you wanna work with and what that experience is like, and that's the whole point of us doing this, is that we enjoy doing it. It makes us happy, and we're very grateful to do it, not because I'm so worried about making money off this and where's it going to go and who's going to sing and what's my publisher going to think and what are these people going to think. Screw that. That has no purpose in what we do.
Not at all. I totally agree. What we talk about this too, art and commerce and the whole thing and day jobs.
Yeah.
And making art as a career. You and I have talked about that topic to death, and it just kind of hit me. And I'm sure we've talked about this before, but isn't the silver lining of the day job thing that there's no conflict of interest. There's no, you're not tempted to make art for all the wrong reasons.
Right.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
It's because every time you're in one of those not so good creative sessions, that's when you start to have this thing of like, man, I already, like, I this is how I feel. I was like, I already got a day job. I don't need to.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now if this is going to start to feel like a job, then we're not going to be doing this anymore. We're not a good fit,
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's kind of a nice little silver lining with having a day job. It's like, yeah, you're not tempted to make crap.
Yes.
For the sake of the dollar. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. I just read this interview. Max is his name. He's the lead singer of this old 90s, 2000s band I love, Eve 6.
Yeah.
And they came out with a new album, and the guy that produced it, was it Butch Vig, the guy that did Nirvana? It might have been him, but they were like, they had a specific sound, and that during their whole kind of reign, and then he's like, I want to do something different. He's like, this album's got to sound different than anything we've ever done. They're probably in their like late 40s, early 50s. And, the producer said, he goes, well, go get a day job then. He's like, go get a day job.
Yeah.
Because right now you're overthinking everything and you're trying to sound different. He goes, go be amongst people. Go work a job. Go take your mind off music just for a while. And then come back and see what you want to do. And I always liked that. Like,
that's cool.
The day job kind of, it gets you out of that rut sometimes, and it puts you amongst, like, what do you do if you work amongst people or you're around the society? You can pull from that a little bit and be like, hey, you might let in something that you never thought you were going to do.
Right.
So I thought that was a really cool thing.
That is really cool. That's another kind of angle on that. There's lots of little silver linings, and there is.
Yeah.
To Rick Rubin's point, I told you, I was like, I think I told you and my buddy Danny the same thing. He makes this comment in there about, he makes you feel not so bad for having a day job and being like a creative person,
Yeah.
'Cause sometimes you beat yourself up and say like, man, like I should be doing this with my whole life because I only got one life to live and that whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, it's, I like how you, as you just said, and Rick, just, there's a lot of, there's no one way to do this thing. There's no one cookie cutter mold of what an artist or what a songwriter or what a creative person does and looks like and spends their time like. You know, it's all different. It's whatever works for you to make your process fluid. And right now, and I think you would agree, it's like for your life, like I feel like firing all cylinders right now. I mean, considering life is life.
Yeah.
It's not perfect, but like I like kind of the balance that I've struck here,
Right.
you know? And I think you do too, in the sense that we like who we create with and our time there is well spent. Maybe we're not casting the same super wide net that we used to. You're right, with like 300 people in a year. I don't need to do that. You don't need to do that, you know?
No.
So
That doesn't give you any more success.
it doesn't.
And if you think about this, look at anyone like successful artists in the music world, or even actors, whatever. So you're killing it in your profession. Well, what do most of these people do after they've had some success? They start a business.
Right.
Musicians tend sometimes to go to an acting world, like so
Right.
they go get a job. They go.
They
do
don't play
something.
music 24 hours a day.
Dude, Ryland, I could not. If you were like, I want you to create a song every single day of your life, and we'll pay you for it, but
Yeah.
you just have to do me. I would hate it. I wouldn't want to do it,
Right.
Because now I'm just forced to do something that, like, okay, like you want to do other things to feed that thing that you do.
Oh, yeah.
But if you were just, can't be a
Because maybe it's a
glutton about
painting
it.
class. Maybe it's a painting. You know,
Anything. But
Keep it
people
fresh.
do different things
Yeah.
to keep them occupied and to keep the creativity flowing. But you can't be a glutton for everything you do.
That's a
because
great
you're gonna
point.
you're gonna overfeed it, and then it's not gonna sound good.
That is a great point. That is huge. We're learning a lot. See, this is the kind of new insights from, you know, this is why I love this show, man.
It's a great show.
We just take one song and we like rip it open. We peel that onion like 100 layers in. And as a result, I think Steve just has dropped so much important information that is not that I've never heard before, or that you know, is not talked about nearly enough. So, oh god, it's such a great point. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, man. No, I was still reeling over that one. What do you think? So, what do you think about a bathroom break? First of all,
Let's do a bathroom break.
I'm gonna check the levels, make sure everything's still firing all cylinders, and then I want to
Questions.
Well, yes. I have two very important questions to ask you, and I would like to do it over a very special drink.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right, let's take 5. Yeah, I was going to say there's the 2 questions, but actually what I think would be cool is I'd like for you and the audience to hear Take Me With You.
Yeah, please.
The demo.
Yeah, of course.
For the first time ever, over our cocktail, over our little drink.
Over a sipper gore.
You're so good at this.
Oh God, you're gonna make me.
I'm gonna
clock
make
in?
you. Yeah.
I got it.
Do your thing. This has never been open. It's got a brand new bottle of Blanton's at Buffalo Trace Distillery. I was lucky enough.
All right, take the wax. Biggest thing is you always want to look at the letter that's on
Here, get on.
the cap.
Fix the mic.
You always want to look at the letter that's on the cap of the Blantons.
Yes.
This one is the letter T. I have every single letter except for the apostrophe S. Now, what happens if you collect all the letters that spell Blantons is you send it in, and they will give you. They used to give you a bunch of bottles, but now they just give you a plaque with all of your horsemen on
It's
it.
like this wooden, like
It's
this wooden
beautiful.
plank or something. Yes, with the letters.
The hardest one to get is the apostrophe S. It is
Really?
I've never seen one,
Shoot, I should have looked.
but
I didn't know that you were so close.
you won't find it, man. It's a unicorn. I mean, you could find it, but
You know what? You know what they say? As we did the tour. I was with my family, and we did the tour, and he said it's not like the Monopoly game. It's not a scam. Meaning,
Right.
like he was almost saying that like we make all the letters. Like he didn't say it, but
Oh
he
no,
was like,
I've seen the plaques. My cousin and I know two people that have done it, so
Yeah.
it's possible.
yeah,
It's just you gotta
drink.
you gotta find it. You just
yeah.
gotta you
'Cause
gotta
they're hard
find
to
it.
find anyway, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But if you ever see an apostrophe S, Steve Lester music at gmail.com, email me. I'll pay big money. A lot of people do. They pay big money just for that.
Absolutely. How much do you think you can get for like on eBay for? Do people buy other people's boards?
Caps. Yeah.
Oh, because that's interesting. Because
So
there's
caps.
actually like, no pride in that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the
you
cheap
could
way
just
out.
Pay for it.
It wouldn't feel good.
No, that'd be rough. I think that would be weak.
I'm excited to hear this.
Yeah, man. I'm thinking on the fly here. I'm like, okay, because we're a very DIY operation, as we talked about over here. Okay, so
Don't get yourself.
I only have so many devices, and we're using my phone. We're using the laptop, and I got nothing else to play music except for this iPad right here.
Had it.
So I think this will work. Yeah, I'm excited for Steve to hear this for the first time. He's never heard my version of it. It's his melody entirely. As it relates to the writing of the song. So we've only heard Steve sing this song. So this is just me doing the best that I can do. Okay, here we go. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, bro.
Thanks for everything.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Dude, your voice sounds amazing.
Thanks, buddy. It's really cool. There's a string part that goes with
Literally
it.
just about to be like string right there.
Yeah.
For sure. Wow, great line. You could just release that It's amazing.
Thanks, man.
Whoa, all the feels, man, on that one.
Yeah.
Your voice sounds incredible.
Thanks, buddy.
Incredible. Wow. Yeah, that took me back.
Yeah.
That took me back, and it took me there.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm there right now. Cheers.
Cheers, buddy.
Beautiful. Well, yeah, and here's the thing, too. It's like, you know, when I watched the Grammys and they had the little montage video, I mean, that's what I was seeing when I'm listening to that. It's like we nailed that.
Yeah.
And just on so many different levels, man. That's, wow. It sounds great, bro.
No,
it sounds great.
This is one of those things, and, you know, maybe this stuff doesn't mean a whole lot to other people, but it does to me. This is, you know, what we created that day and what the life that it's gonna go on to have. I have lots of kind of thoughts on, you know, the life that it should have. Either way, it's going to be cool. A very, very, very cool thing for this song to be out in the world. But this is one of those things, it means a whole lot to me. And this is one of those things that, like, you write a song like that together and that, like, you know, you have this bond with somebody for life, you know. And so I'm very appreciative for, you know, our friendship that kind of, you know, flourished as a result of writing this song.
Yeah,
and I think that's what I think. I think it has a lot to do with the song, I guess, is what I'm saying, and that means a lot to me. So, thank you for everything. Yeah,
dude. And what you guys, you know, a lot of people that love Ryland's music, and a lot of you that listen to his podcast and listen to his music and follow him. I wish you would have the opportunity to get to know him like I do, which maybe you can someday. But and thank you for supporting his music. But I'm just a big supporter of your life, dude. You're such a cool dude. Like,
same.
Again, like, yeah, I can't stress enough like how powerful of a person you are. And again, when I'm like listening to that, I'm like, a song like that. I feel like emotional when I listen to it, but it only exists, and you can only do that with someone that I think is just a genuine, like, real good guy. That I mean, it's definitely blossomed into this beautiful friendship, and what a cool way to start something is through the power of song.
Oh God, cool! Yeah, so cool. And he brings up another great point, ladies and gentlemen. He's full of them. It's and not about me particular, but. You just said, you know, it's very difficult to write something meaningful and beautiful if you're a piece of shit, right?
Right.
So
it is.
How cool is that to have that something to feel good about it for ourselves?
Yeah.
You know, like we. That's just one of those things where you can. You can take that with nobody can take that away from you. That we brought that something like that and so many others, like Here We Go Again, Over You, which is also coming out soon. There's just so many songs that we've written together. You know, people can, you know, life can kick you when you're down and things like this, but nobody can take that stuff away from you. You know, which is very cool. You know,
yeah, well said.
Very, very cool. I've never thought about that. I know you weren't exactly saying that, but what you did say made me think of that. Is just, man, yeah. You.
By the way, this is how it works in a writer's room with him and I. It's like, whatever, he says something, I say something, but it stems to this other thing that leads to something. And find those people in your life and never let them go, because those are the people you feed off of, and that's what the creative process is all about.
Absolutely.
You just witnessed that.
I couldn't agree more. It's like, you know, this guy's one of a kind, and man, that is my favorite thing about my life is the people in it. I was, for whatever reason, God was like, okay, this guy, I'm going to put the best people possible in his life. So, and Steve's one of them. Very cool.
God said you're gonna go to Starbucks and not order a tall frappuccino, but you're actually gonna meet someone cool today.
Yeah, don't bail
Yeah.
on the Starbucks show. Don't call in sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great, man. I'm so glad you got to hear that. I'm so glad you like
it sounds
kind of where it's
absolutely
going.
beautiful.
Can't wait for all of you to hear how it ends up.
It's so funny that as soon as you said there's gonna be a string arrangement, I was gonna be like, Ryland, let me have this. I'm gonna put a string arrangement to it, because
Absolutely.
I'm hearing it. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's the feel it needs. Oh, it's
100%.
gonna be gorgeous, man. I can't wait to hear it.
100%. Yeah, there's a piano too.
I know.
Yeah,
All
but
the
it
feels.
yeah, it is pretty sparse. It's
It doesn't need much.
It doesn't need
much.
much. It doesn't need much. And who's to say? Might be cool to do like a even more strip mix where it's just bare bones. But anyway, well, this has been amazing, and I have two important questions at least to ask Steve.
Okay.
Steve, over this glass of Blanton's, what are the 3 biggest lessons you've learned on what it takes to write a song that you love? These songs that we're talking about, these spiritual, meaningful songs that we love. What are the 3 biggest lessons, 3 biggest takeaways you've probably taken away in your creative life?
3 of them. I would say number 1, let go. Letting go. I say that because I've got this tattoo of, it's like a sailor's wheel, and everyone's like, oh man, you must be a sailor, were you in the Navy? No, I got a wheel to remind me to let go of the wheel and stop being in control all the time.
Interesting.
So I think if you take a really big topic such as like loss or love, and you know this too, you're tackling a really big statement, and I think as writers, as songwriters, we want to just pound our own individual experience with that in it at all times, and so we really are like just striving to just punch and nail it, like, okay, this is what love looks like to me. But I think sometimes, like we were talking about during this whole podcast, is sometimes you have to just let go of the wheel a little bit and let this other thing kind of come and grab you. And by letting go, you tend to let in a lot of magic that you probably weren't intending to do. And I think, think about it like this: how many songs do you listen to that are, we think, love songs, but that artist or writer you found out was writing it about like drugs or something? It was completely different. But and I always think about that, is because I think that's when you let go and stop being in control so much and allow something else to come in, you can find magic, you can find beauty, you can make your song even more versatile, that it actually will help even more people, because they'll take their own version from it. But so many times as creators and when we're writing, is we don't let go enough.
Right.
Actors do this a lot. I just saw this interview, and actors will get a script and they'll do a table read, and they get the idea of the character they're going to be. And so when they go on the first day of shooting, they're doing it, and they're giving you what they think the character should be. This is what I read. This is what the script calls for. This is what I think. It's their interpretation of what the character should be. And a lot of actors have always said this. Like, the best advice they'll ever get was, there's this one director in particular, and he just says, okay, try it again, but just let go. Because sometimes you're not always right? Sometimes what you thought the character should be, or what you thought the song should be about, it's even bigger than that. And so we're very fragile people, creators. We are very fragile. And when we have this thing that we're holding on to, and like, this is the way I want to say it, we don't let go so much. We try to control it. And just the beauty of letting go sometimes allows so much room for all this other stuff to come out that was supposed to be there, and people really can connect with that even more.
Especially as it relates to your collaborators.
Exactly.
And your just relationships in general. It's like, like, what if, not to use me as an example of where this could work, but What if when we were writing Take Me With You and you weren't the giving creator that you are? What if you were kind of shut down my
I see your point.
my
Exactly.
issue that I remember I walked in that day
Yeah.
going through all this loss.
For sure.
And so I was probably, selfishly like what I was kind of wanting us to say. What I wanted both of us to say for this song was maybe coming out of this traumatic thing that I was going through, but maybe it had some power to it. I'm not saying that it did, but what if it did? You're not the creator that is going to like be like, well, no, it has to be like this.
No, I'm sorry,
That's
sir.
your point.
That wasn't my intention. Of course, yeah.
Yeah, like how cool is that? And I know that I struggle with that, and so that's another amazing point. Wow.
Yeah, it's to piggyback on what you just said. It is really crucial. If you walk in with an idea or a melody in your head, and look, you can fight for it as much as you want in a room, but sometimes if you to be a good collaborator, letting go sometimes will allow. Maybe I'm gonna take a little bit of like what grandma was to you, and let's put that in there, and I can feel that in that song. You know what I mean? And so like maybe that's not always the intention, but if you let go and let other people in, it will come out more beautiful. It really will. And there's a trust thing there, but you have to do it. You can't just, or if not, go write it yourself then.
Right. And isn't it very similar to how relationships work? You could say the same thing about relationships. It's, if you're not going to, treat somebody like a partner,
right?
Go be single.
Go be single.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. 100%, man. I've been married for 5 years, and I can tell you.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes.
But letting go of
huge.
It's like it's a big thing.
It's a big,
but it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Because I just think it makes everything stronger no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say number 2. I honestly, it's easy, but don't overthink it. / simplify. I think, again, we're talking about a big subject. What's a meaningful song? Well, if it's a meaningful song to you, it's probably going to be a big subject. I'll use loss and love, right? Because those are just 2 really big things. Because you can write those anyway. Real piece of advice that I always held near was, an intellectual will take a very easy idea and explain it to you in the most complex way ever.
Yeah.
And an artist will take a very complex idea and explain it so easy and so simple. It just makes sense. And I try to do that because a lot of times you're writing something and you have publisher on your shoulder, you have what other people are going to think, you have all this stuff. So yes, we like to be clever. Yes, we like to be outside the box. Yes, we get it. We've been in Nashville. You've been in Nashville a long time. You know the rules, right? But sometimes just saying the words, I love you,
oh, hell yeah,
works.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because you can say I love you a million different ways, but sometimes you just got to say it. Sometimes you just got to, in a meaningful song, I think you just talk like you would in a conversation. And that's why your question was great, because you said meaningful song. Now, if you want to write a hoot and holler, you can go be clever all you want and be as intellectual as you want and be like, whatever. But if it's a meaningful song, I've always thought simple just connects. I mean, look at, I even hate to bring it up, but like the whole boy band era, like all those like simple little love songs that they were singing to teeny boppers, like it worked. Why? Because they were singing simple lyrics that kind of meant something. Like they weren't trying to like outclass them or outsmart them. It was just very, very basic, and it worked. And sometimes people just need to hear simple words because they're not getting it at home. They're not getting their relationship, or maybe that was the way grandma used to talk to me.
Right.
You don't have to overthink it. Don't try to be clever. Just simplify. Simple as God at sometimes, And then I would say number 3 is I love this saying. It's called "Right from the Jugular." And when I was a freshman in high school, my poetry teacher, Mr. Jameson, he used to say, "All right, everybody, today we're going to write from the jugular." And all that meant was, we're going to write something, if it's meaningful, we're all basically, you just said, take a pen, slice your wrist, and pour it all over the page. Right from the, like, cut your jugular and just bleed all over it. Because if you're going to write about something so deep, then you got to learn how to get deep. And you got to get dark. You got to get painful.
Yeah.
You got to get joyful. So tap into these deep-rooted things in your veins. And a lot of people don't want to touch that. They want to try to be clever enough not to unveil who they really are. But if you're going to write a song that's meaningful, it's okay to unveil a little bit of emotion and truth from the deepest parts of your gut, because that's what the song needs. So right from the jugular, man, right out of the vein, bleed over the page, and don't be afraid to go there.
And don't you think that it's one of those things where it's easier to pull back?
Yeah.
You know, if you go too far, you can always pull back a little bit.
For sure.
It's a lot harder to stay safe and never get there in the first place, to even know what it feels like.
Exactly. And, you know, a lot of people don't want to, you know, they don't want to write from the jugular because it may not be marketable, or it may not be this. And, like, you know, no one could possibly be feeling what I'm feeling at this moment, because
Right.
I'm such in this weird place. But no, they actually do. Some of the greatest songs that I connect to, I could tell were, it was blood on the page, man. Like, it wasn't an easy thing to talk about sometimes, or it was a beautiful thing to talk about, and they got so deep with it that it really connected. So, let go, don't overthink, and write from the jugular, for sure. Those are the three things.
You know what, the don't overthink, I meant to mention, you know what that reminds me of? During COVID, you and I wrote a song on, like, Skype or whatever, FaceTime or something, called All the Days of My Life.
Oh,
and it's like, dude, it's one of the, and I got a plan for that one too.
Good. God,
you know what I mean? It's one of those songs where it's not rocket science, but it just works the way it is. It doesn't need to be complicated.
I remember that right. Yeah.
You know?
For sure.
It's just about loving somebody. It's about just feeling powerful emotions for somebody. And to be honest with you, I don't think I mean, it's something we could use nowadays. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
You know, being married sometimes,
Yeah.
it's men and women are two completely different animals.
Oh, yeah.
I will say this: what I've learned, one thing is, you know, handling certain situations is like, men will try to, myself, I'll just speak personally. Like, I try to handle a situation with, you know, great context, and I think about it, and I'm like, well, how can we solve this, and all this kind of stuff. And I'll sit there and I'll give a PowerPoint presentation with a laser pointer, and I'll be like, this is where the problem was, this, whatever. And sometimes she'll just say, I just wanted you to simply say, I'm sorry.
Right.
And again, it's when simple as God. Like, we always overcomplicate things, and if we just would have just done something so minute but meaningful, it would have helped everything. And I think that you got to take that in songwriting too. It's okay to just break it down to just that nitty gritty and get your point across by just saying something so simple, because that simpleness can be complex in its own way and mean so many things to so many different people.
And, you know, it kind of begs the question, if that's all she wanted, what makes us think that the audience doesn't want the same exact thing? She is the audience.
She is the audience.
You know, like she, the
100%.
figurative she, you know, we're all in that boat, you know. Complexity is the, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I guess what I'm trying to say is simplicity is king.
Right.
Really, at the end of the day, I think complexity, you know, you create a lot of noise, you know, instead of cutting to the heart of the matters, you know. So,
you know, don't always dress like you have somewhere else better to be.
boom.
Sometimes just,
That too.
you know, just be present in the moment with the thing and be happy with it, but don't always like try to. I just feel like so many people try to outsmart, outclass, outdo everything,
right.
and be like, and I'm trying to be so interesting, but in doing that, I'm losing every single pulse in this song that has any availability and connectivity to reach somebody, why do it?
Man, that literally, ever since we started talking about that part of it, it's really brings up some. It reminds me how important it is to preserve the soul of a song, and which is why it's important to keep that circle tight. Man,
Yeah.
there is nothing worse than sucking the soul out of something that has the legs to be.
And it happens.
Something
all
so
the
special.
time.
I know you have to really, man, art is important, and those pieces that have magic in them, you really got to protect them. You got to hold them like a dove in your hand. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
I think we learned a lot on that one. And there's one other question before we begin to wrap things up, Steve. If you could go back and tell a younger you anything to prepare for the loss of loved ones, what would that be? Not that you can prepare, but
Right. Well, when I was younger, I mean, I was raised Catholic, and so I remember, losing grandparents and lost a lot of. There was young people in my life too when I was younger. Being a Catholic, I always believed that no matter what, that person went on to a better place. So there was a little bit of comfort there, and I still believe that today. So what I would say is I would probably remind myself that, and just like that song, yes, they are in a better place, but they're still with you always. And you can't forget that. You just have to allow them with you, and always allow them with you. If they were a mentor in your life, if they were a loved one, if they were someone special to you, allow them in your life still, because they're still out there, and look for the signs. They're in a cardinal resting on a tree branch. They're in a song, a scent. It's something. They're always with you. I would also say you should really focus on the time that you have with the people around you, and be grateful for that time and appreciate that time with the close relationships, the family members, the loved ones that you have in your life, because nobody is promised tomorrow. And so I would take a good look around of the people that you hold dear, and when you're with them, really be with them, and be present, and don't take that for granted.
that's huge. Man, yeah, like you, I grew up Catholic, and so I don't know if this is where you were going with that, but man, when I was a kid, I went to like 100 wakes and 100 funerals.
Yeah.
Catholics handle death a certain way, and I know everybody out there is a little different, and everybody's had a different experience. When I was young, I was Catholic, and a lot of people died.
Yeah.
Because I had a big family, right? So all of the older folks were starting to pass away,
Yeah.
right? Nowadays, people live a little bit longer. But yeah, anyway, I just remember so much death and so much pain.
Right.
And then that carried over into my 20s when people close to me I started losing them in my 30s as well. Man, yeah, I think you nailed it on that one too. Because I wouldn't even, when I knew I wanted to ask you that question, I didn't know what the answer was myself, because I never seem to get it right when I do lose somebody. I always handle it very poorly if they're really close to me. And, but yeah, if you could only just keep in mind that they're gone physically. It's one thing to hear something, and it's another thing to really internalize it and really believe it. And I don't think I ever, if I'm being honest, which I try to be on this show more often, now, if I'm being honest, I don't think that I ever really believe that when the loss is just way too heavy, and it's only after you let time heal a little bit that you're able to, if you're a spiritual person,
Yeah.
are you able to tap in, let that antenna come up when you went through some healing, and then you can feel that angel on your shoulder? You know, in my case,
Oh yeah.
these three, you know.
Right. It's not it's definitely not like an overnight thing. Everyone grieves differently.
Yeah.
And,
But you should learn, to your point.
Yeah.
You should learn from each one.
Right. Yeah. There's all these different stages, and what's really, I lost a good friend, young guy, a couple years younger than me, a couple summers ago, and I'm like,
Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and it's one of those things of like, I dealt with that in my own way, but one thing about him, he was a musician, and all of our conversations were about music, and I still talk to him all the time. I will.
That's cool.
Yeah, he really loved Third Eye Blind, and
cool.
God of Wine was kind of like our song. So yeah, we're listening to that. And you took me to that show, and are you kidding me? Did I not think about that guy the whole time? Oh, I think he was there.
Took Steve to Third Eye Blind a couple weeks ago.
It was amazing.
We had a lot of fun. Go ahead.
Yeah, great show. But yeah, I mean, like, I still like, again, not trying to bring it up, but take me with you. Like, he was there. I took him with. He's always there.
That's why I asked you the question. I'm like, what was? I know what I was thinking about, but I'm trying to be, as I get older here, a little less selfish, a little less in my own head about what I think. And it's like, I'm like, man, that was Steve's idea. What was he thinking about? You know what I mean? So no, that makes sense. Well, and you and I are lucky to have that song.
It was my concept. It wasn't. It was our idea at the end of it. How the song turned out.
Well,
it was,
and that's
it
a
was,
part of,
it was an hour thing.
and that's a part of that whole fusing the DNA.
Yeah.
Right. That creative DNA. I allowed you to be you. You allowed me to be me, and we're left with something that you and I can always refer to. But man, you know what I hate more than, that I hate this more than anything, is when very principled about this specific issue more than anything else probably in my life. I hate great art sitting on a shelf.
Yeah.
Steve knows this. I'm begging.
I'm recording Sunday.
He's got some music.
Next Sunday, I'm bringing some stuff out. And only because you've inspired me.
He's got an insane amount of music, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, and we're going to get to plugs in a minute, but this guy has an insane amount of music, and he knows that I hate more than anything like great art sitting on a shelf, and so that's why it's important for Take Me With You to see the light of day. But also, again, we're going to get to it in a minute, but this dude, we're going to get to plugs in a minute, but yeah, we don't want the great stuff sitting on a shelf. It has no business on a shelf.
It doesn't. Collects dust, and it doesn't do anything for you, and it doesn't do anything for anybody else.
I'm sorry. We were talking about your buddy.
No. When we got there.
Did we get there? Okay.
Yeah, we got there.
Okay. Yeah. So your point being that, oh man, yeah, it's just so important to really remember that they're always with you when they're gone, and but no kind of loss is no loss of one person or one thing is the same. Isn't that?
Yeah.
It's one of those things you can't. I've said this before on this show, that you can't practice for loss.
No.
It's not like we're not machines. We can't like lift the weight of loss. We can't bench press loss
Very true.
for 6 months every day, 7 days a week, and hope to be immune to it, because each one's going to be different.
No, there's no pill you can take that will just get you over it. Everyone grieves in their own way, and but sometimes, I guess as I got older, I realized that loss is also a valuable lesson of what you do have. So when you lose something,
yeah.
you kind of start looking at things that you do have, and I don't think people do that enough. I don't think a lot of people look at the things they don't have and think my life would be better if I had this, and I'm like, well, that's incorrect. I think you.
Oh yeah.
I want you to turn around and actually look at the things that you do have and take advantage of that and be grateful for those things. And yeah, I don't. Yeah, I guess that's all I want to say about that.
Especially the people. Again, like I said before, I've been very, very, very fortunate. That's one thing in my darkest hour. You know, I got some really cool people in my life. So, you know, I hope that we can all, you know, if you're ever going through something, just, you know, as much as it might be difficult to step outside of how you're feeling, you know, whether it's like, you know, the ego is busted up, or whether somebody's like, you know, kicking you when you're down, whatever life's doing to you at the moment, just, you know, think about what you do have. That's another excellent point. Especially, I think it's probably most powerful with people.
Yeah.
It's as much as you know, there's, you know, when I think about my life, it's very grateful for the ability to create and all these really cool things, and enjoy my life for the most part. It's like the people that really just make it the most colorful and vibrant, you know. So
Yeah, man. It's beautiful.
don't take it for granted.
That's right.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've learned a lot today. Okay. One of the greatest of all time has graced us here on the show.
It was a pleasure to be here, man. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could do this, and yeah, I hope you guys take something from this, and take me with you. Coming out soon, I'm hoping.
Coming out soon.
I mean, I can't wait, man.
Coming out soon.
Coming out soon.
Wrapping up. So just to give everybody a little heads up, mixing 2 albums right now. And this is Take Me With You is going to come out on Sleeping with Ghosts Volume 2. I've kind of like mentioned it here or there. But Volume 2 takes what we were doing on Volume 1, which, you know, a very important part of this catalog, Volume 1. Volume 2 is just, you know, a whole other gear. And really excited to see to be able to put this song in this context, because you all know, anybody who listens to this music knows what Sleeping with Ghosts is all about. If you listen to that record and you listen to, you know, us discuss it from time to time, you know what it's about. And to really Take Me With You basically takes the album, it shapes it in a whole new way. It's not just about what it was about. Now it's about something else. Now it's about something bigger than that. Now it's you know, a little bit more space and time, a little less, you know, kind of in the moment, a little less breakup, more, you know, life at large. So
But still, Sleeping with Ghosts, I mean, great title for something to.
Thanks, man.
For that song to be on.
Yeah.
Because
I
you
just
can
thought it was
take it in that
appropriate.
way. It's very
You know what I mean?
appropriate. It's beautiful.
It becomes bigger than, you know.
Yeah, exactly what you just said.
Yeah. Sleeping with Ghosts started about like, you know, it's like
Yeah.
dealing with loss in love, but yeah, now we're talking about something so much bigger than that, something so much even more universal in another way. Anyway, Steve, I would love for you to talk about what is going on with you and your creative life. Anything you'd like to plug. I'll put links everywhere. There's going to be links on the bottom.
I mean, there's really, well, I'll tell you what, if you want to listen to some of the old school,
yes, we do.
The band stuff was what we were called Why Not Be Kings. So you can go to Spotify, look up Why Not Be Kings. I wrote every single song. There's about 3 albums on there. And then we also, right now, I'm currently working on a sound catalog for film and TV. I'm really excited about that.
Under what What name would that be under? Steve Lester.
Well, no one can hear
Long term.
anything yet. Long term, we had that's undisclosed at the moment.
Okay,
Undisclosed in the moment. Now you can listen to my first album I ever did. It's an EP. It's just look up Steve Lester on Spotify. That was back in I think 2012.
Cool.
A lot of songs I'm proud about that are still on there or that are on there. And then just everything is kind of up and coming. So. If you want to reach out to me, stevelestermusic@gmail.com. Find me on Instagram at Steve Lester Official, and stay tuned for more stuff coming. It's on the horizon, and more songs from me and this guy.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much, buddy. Thanks for
Thank
being
you.
here. Love you.
Love you. Cheers.
Let's do it again. Cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers, y'all.
You can find